I got off the plane yesterday in Milwaukee, I realized I did not know a single person in the state of Wisconsin. My name is Randy Fleury. I am from Harlingen, Texas. Now, Harlingen is located in the southernmost county of Texas, along that southern border that is getting so much press these days. I've lived there all my life. So what am I doing here? I'm going to start with a photo. I'm sorry not all of you can see. This is a photograph that was taken on Christmas Day 1944 in Harlingen, Texas. Pictured in this photograph are Leo and Helen Pyle and their daughters Roseanne Pyle and my mother Virginia Pyle Fleury. And that absolutely adorable blonde-haired toddler is me. I was 1.5 years old. I am now 81 years old. Not pictured in this photograph is my uncle, Porter Pyle. Porter Pyle died on September 27, 1944, when his B-24 Liberator number 9295078 crashed in Germany. Porter Pyle and Ralph Bode died at the same instant. 11 months ago at Arlington National Cemetery, there was a similar service with a flyover for my uncle and another crew member whose remains had been identified about the same time, James Triplett, who was the radio operator aboard that B-24. That was a disastrous mission that day that I believe stands today in the annals of the United States Army Air Force, as well as the United States Air Force as being the largest single loss of combat aircraft from one airfield. The 445th Bomb Group was stationed at Debenham Airfield in England. It was comprised of 4 different squadrons. The 700th Bombardment Squadron, in which this B-24 the 701st Bombardment Squadron, the 703rd, and the 704th. 37 planes took off from Debenham that morning. And you had another person from Racine that was a part of this mission. And he was on the ground. He was the operations officer who had already flown 35 missions in combat. His name was Lieutenant Robert Toby. His granddaughter and great-granddaughter are with us today. Would you raise your hand? Thank you. Lieutenant Toby kept a diary, a fairly extensive diary. He listed what he did day by day, just like any diary. The entries for any day would contain 8, 10, 12 sentences. When I read through that diary, which is posted on the Kassel Mission Historical Society website, when you get to the 27th day of September, however, 1944, there are only 7 words written in that diary. And by their silence, they are very poignant. Here's what they are. Kassel, 31 out of 37, 28 crews. crash landed in either Allied territory or North England. 28 crews were lost. The Kassel Mission Historical Society, of which I am a member, and the Topi family is a member, honor the memories of all who flew that day. And for quite a while they had planned on being in Germany, where there is a monument erected to all of the airmen, both American and German, who lost their lives that day. And that's where the majority of those folks are today, in Germany. There's one member of that society who lives in England, Eric Pratt. Years ago, Eric went to the various crash sites, and he retrieved pieces of the downed aircraft. And today, on behalf of the Kassel Mission Historical Society, I am presenting Tina Kruger a part from the actual aircraft in which her uncle and my uncle were flying. I got one of these in Arlington about a year ago. Tina, this one is for you.
Is that the sister?
When I was preparing for my own uncle's service, I did a little research. I wanted to find out about this squadron that he flew in, and that Ralph Bode flew in, the 700th Bombardment Squadron. And Google, being the fantastic search engine that it is, typed that in, and lo and behold, the 700th Squadron is still in existence. It has been repurposed from time to time and renamed. It is now the 700th Airlift Squadron, stationed at Dobbins Air Reserve Base in Georgia. You just saw one of their C-130s fly over. And we're honored to have some of their personnel on the ground with us today. Lieutenant Colonel John Johnston and Master Sergeant Michael Eubanks. Would you make yourselves known? So I picked up the phone and I called down to the 700th Squadron. Figured I'd start at the top, so I called the commanding officer's number. And I spoke to his secretary. When she heard why I was calling, to see if I could arrange for that unit to do the flyover, she was flabbergasted because they did not know that my uncle's remains had been recovered. I went to Dobbins. I sat down and I spoke with the commanding officer, the operations officer, 2 or 3 other officers, the senior enlisted man of the base. When I explained why I was there, they were all in without hesitation. We thank them today for their participation here, because what it says to us is that they do not forget, that they show up for their buddies. Thank you, Colonel Johnston. Thank you, Master Sergeant Eubanks, for your participation. Surrounded this day representative of one of the families whose loved one perished with theirs. But certainly by what we saw coming in the city of Racine, the mayor's remarks, the state of Wisconsin, the governor ordering the flags be flown at half-mast today, and indeed, in a little while, you will hear the words, a grateful nation. We are here today for closure. I thought closure had occurred for me at the end of the ceremony in Arlington last October. But actually, it did not occur until I heard the words of the pilot in command of that C-130 passed over, Captain Andrew Blevins of the 700th Airlift Squadron. And as he flew over and applied power to clear the Reagan International Airspace of Washington, D.C., Captain Blevins said these words, "They're home now. They can rest. We've got to watch." And here today, we are here for closure. From a toddler, year and a half old, an old man now who's 81 and a half, I had to be here today on behalf of my family, to be with this family for their closure. And indeed, this is the first time in 80 years that I have had, or anybody in my family has had a chance to stand up publicly and say to the family of another crew member, thank you, Ralph Bode. As tail gunner with the assault coming from the rear and from underneath, you were in the line of fire, and I know that you did everything possible to defend our loved one that day. And now you are home again, Ralph, in Racine. Your family has you back. Please rest now.
But I learned of him through my grandma, Ralph's mom, and through my dad, Ralph's older brother. I learned of him through his photographs and the pictures that he took that read like a storyboard of his young life. I read the words he wrote about his desire to travel across the country, and I learned from my father how they both shared a great love of flying. Ralph, having grown up in 1940s America, World War II had touched virtually every part of the American life. From its movies to music to the books Americans read, the themes of unity, patriotism, and furthering the war effort towards victory filled our land. And none of this went unnoticed by Ralph. In the spring of 1942, having just graduated from Washington Park High School, Ralph enlisted in the Army Air Corps on November 14, 1942. There, his love of country, adventure, travel, and flight would be fulfilled. And I can only imagine the pride my grandparents felt as he joined the ranks to serve his country. After completing his training, he was assigned to the 700th Bombardment Squadron, 445th Bomber Group. He was stationed at Chippenham Air Base in England, where he served as a tail gunner on the B-24 Liberator bomber. There he flew several missions before his plane and crew were shot down over Germany September 27, 1944. As for my grandparents and father, who are buried right here, they went to their graves, never knowing this day would come, or having closure to their whereabouts. They were left with a wound that time would never heal. Weeks of hopeful waiting to hear something, anything, turned to months. Seasons came and went, and the years passed by with no word. The longing that their heart felt for his return was never lessened, and their love never died. But as Proverbs 13 rightly states, hope delayed makes the heart sick. Despite many inquiries written to the War Department and letters exchanged with the families of other crew members, still there was no word, and they lost hope. They lost hope of him ever returning to his own country, to his home. They lost hope of a proper homecoming and a proper burial for their missing son. The pain of their loss had overshadowed any pride they once felt. And they thought his story had ended. And we all would have thought that until today. We find there's a second half to this story. And there's also a second half to the verse I quoted earlier. Let me read the whole verse now. The whole story. Hope delayed makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. Today, our family's longing has been fulfilled. Hope was delayed, but not denied. And 80 years later, to the day, my grandparents' sweet son is finally home. I'd like to take a moment to honor the brotherhood of his entire crew that went down with their plane that September day, 1944. These great men have their selflessness, and the freedom they died to obtain will live on. These freedoms we enjoy were won by the blood, sweat, and agony of those whose names I am about to read. Those who died that we might live. Second Lieutenant Robert N. Hansen, pilot, killed in action. Second Lieutenant Herbert C. Bridges, co-pilot, prisoner of war. Second Lieutenant Porter M. Pyle, navigator, killed in action. Second Lieutenant John C. Woodley, bombardier, prisoner of war. Sergeant Charles C. Palmer Jr., turret gunner, killed in